This podcast was started, I would say maybe 7, 8, maybe 9 months ago at this point. And when it started, I was in a good place in life. Headspace, time management, work, everything was lining up, but something still felt missing. And that was the same time frame that I started this podcast. I felt like it was something missing in the podcast. So it didn't pick back up for a while. And recently, I've always been a really reflective person and super big on self-understanding. I don't like to be that person who just avoids it or finds whatever excuse they can find to not think about things and figure things out. So things have always felt missing, and I never understood what that was. Because as much as I thought and as much as I reflected, I could never get to it. But it was just the fact that something was missing in me still. I didn't feel like something was there. And I knew that the podcast was supposed to help it, because that's the original reason I thought about it. The idea of it is just so cool to me. Like, if there was something I could choose to do as a career, to that point where people say, oh, it's super successful because he loves what he does. His fun is work. This would be it. And I realized that was the reason when I really sat and thought about it. As I was picking through my brain, self-reflecting, I thought about the things that scare me. And I guess why, or scared, but I guess why they did, how it happened. Because it's rare for things like that to be an action. They're usually a reaction to something that happened to you before. And I realized, I don't even know if I would call it, I'm going to call it mental fog. Because I don't like to use mental illness and I don't like to use depression in terms like that. Just because I feel like that gives it a power over your life. You're just going through mental fog, which every human does. From a super young age. And that is what makes or break a person, is how well they can handle that mental fog. If you can't handle it, you will be average or below. If you can handle it, you will be great. And that is not to say that there's a standard to measure it. Most people's standard would be money. But the standard to measure it is great compared to the person that you could have been. And that came to me as I was watching a podcast, actually. He was talking about how true hell is staring in the eyes of the person that you could have been. And once I started watching that, I really clicked it. I was like, it's because I'm currently doing the things that I think I would love doing, but I was doing them for the wrong reasons. Not for the reasons I actually love doing them. And I feel like I have came the furthest mentally since I started doing what I do now for work. Because it's something that I love and I enjoy, but there was something else about it, and I didn't know what it was. But it was, so I'm a car salesman, and it's the simple fact that you go in there and it's like you're learning the whole time. And not only are you learning, but you're gaining so much perspective. You meet a lot of interesting people. I've met people from all ends of the spectrum. I mean, I deal with credit scores all day, and not to say that credit scores are a reflection of a person, but credit scores tell you something about somebody's lifestyle, you know? And I've seen anywhere from 300s to 850s. And from every single one of them, obviously, I have to talk to them, and they have to like me. The biggest thing about a sales job is people have to like you. And I struggled with it at first because I couldn't listen. But then my boss, actually, I don't remember if he said it exactly or if he said something that led me to the conclusion, was talking about how the biggest key to sales is actually listening. It's not the selling, it's not a lot of things. The biggest thing is listening. Because if you can't listen, you can't focus. And it doesn't matter if you're the kind of salesperson that just lies and wants to get a fat paycheck, or if you're the kind of salesperson that tries to help their customer out the most. You can't do either if you don't just listen. So you have to focus. And when you're doing that, it's more personal. So you meet a lot of people. I've met a lot of people, and I enjoy checking up on my customers after their purchase because it made an impact. It gave me something. It was a conversation with a stranger. And I went to school at Georgia State. I didn't know why I chose Georgia State. That was probably the last school I had on my mind. But something led me to it because something just told me that Atlanta was the place I needed to be. And all of that combined still didn't feel right. And it's because literally what I love doing is reflecting, and a big part of reflecting is perspective. And you only get perspective through life. You have to learn to look at life you have to focus on it instead of seeing it in your peripheral vision. There's a lot of times where I get stressed or anxious, and I literally go outside, and I just focus on a tree, and it helps me, because it's just life. You have to give yourself life. Life isn't always going to be great. Life will life. But you have to choose to give yourself life even when it's not. So, I love interacting with people. I love thinking. I love the perspectives. And one thing that bothered me as I grew older, and I realized all of this, was the fact that people don't like to have conversations until they do. And then I thought about it, and I was like, well, if I don't try to have the conversations either, why would I expect anybody else to? So then I realized that I can do something about that. I can do something about people feeling like they can't share their story, because everybody has a story, and that story teaches you things. And the best teacher in life is perspective, in my opinion. So I really thought about the reasons why I didn't do it. Because if I don't do it, we're all the same. It's gotta be the same reasons other people wouldn't do it. And it's all the anxiety, all the fear of judgment, all of the things that social media and influence teach you. And that's not the case, because social media is a highlight reel. That's all it is. All of these people still have the conversations. And then as I just met more interesting people, more successful people, more in tune people, I realized that they all do have those conversations. So then I really had to make that change in myself. Because if it is one thing that a lot of great people have in common, then obviously there's an association. And then that's when I realized that most people are willing to have the conversations. They're not until they are. And it's just a level of comfort and feeling like they're not going to be judged, which I do that a lot too. And I realize that I have really bad anxiety about it. But you just have to remember that nobody cares. At the end of the day, nobody cares. And if somebody does have something bad to say about it, then it doesn't really matter. Because if nobody has anything bad to say to you, then you're not doing something right. Nobody will ever say anything bad about you if you're doing worse than them. If you think sicker, worse thoughts than them. If you are lazier than them. Nobody will ever be mad at you for that. Except for family and the people that care about you and things like that. But the general public, the second that you're doing better, they have something bad to say. If you enjoy your job and you work 15 hours a week, a day, but you love it, people will sit there and be like, I wouldn't want to live that life, and tell you why you're apparently so miserable. But you're loving what you're doing. So when nobody cares, the people that do care, they should care. In a sense, it's subconscious jealousy. So all of that, honestly, is just me being vulnerable to a camera, because I have to break the ice at some point to do what I want to do. I want to travel the world. I've always, when I was little, if you used to ask me what I wanted to be, after I got out of that stage where I was like, oh, a president, a lawyer, all the basic things, I always knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I never knew how to answer it. And every single time I tried to answer it to myself, I never knew how to answer it either. And then I really sat and thought about it, and I asked myself, what is it that you really want to do? And then I looked at the things that God had told me I should do, the directions he was guiding me in. The podcast and my job helped me realize exactly what I wanted to do. And when I was little, I used to just say I want to make a lot of money, because the things I want to do, in my mind at that time, required money. And now I realize that they don't. I want to meet cool people, have cool conversations, explore, travel the world with cool people, do cool things, have cool experiences. I say cool in the sense of things that I enjoy and that I feel like other people will enjoy. I want to just do random things. I'm just such an exploring mind, and people are so focused on all the wrong things. But then I realized that I don't really hate people. I just don't like a lot of the things outside the curtain because they forget to look inside the curtain. People worry about the wrong things. But I love people. I love talking to random people, making a random person's day, doing cool things, having cool experiences. I will scroll through social media, find some random place I've never been, and then I'll go show up at it. Hopefully somebody will come with me. And I used to not go if nobody will. Because who goes alone? That's weird. But then I realized that's just what I was led to believe. Because it's not weird. It's an experience. The vibe was great. I people watched. I loved that. I love people watching. And then I realized that's also why I love the idea of the podcast. I just have to do it right. And why I love car sales. Because the two things that those two have in common, and this goes for a lot of sales jobs, real estate, door-to-door sales, whatever the case is, having interesting conversations with people is what I want to do. And I do that doing both of these things in a way where I can learn. I can learn perspective. I can learn about your life story. We will probably have a lifelong connection or long-term connection, whatever the case is, because we had good conversation. But good conversation isn't, did you see the streamer's thing? Did you see that so-and-so celebrity said this, did this? The new episode of this. Real conversation comes from focus, really listening. And I love doing that. So I want this to be an area where not only is it going to be there for people to use, I want it to be a tool. I want people to be able to come on the podcast and feel like they can be open and they'll be themselves. For all I care, you just need somebody to have a debate with. I will have the debate with you. It's a comfortable environment. Even if we have completely opposing views, there's no judgment. I don't care. To each their own. And you also don't care when you really think about it. Because we all know that everybody has opinions. It's not the opinions that matter. It's the morality and the connection. There's a lot of great people with different opinions than you. There's a lot of great people who do different things than you. There's a lot of great people who do things that you think are weird. And there's a lot of great people who don't have a comfortable space to speak, or who are scared of judgment, and things like that. There's a lot of great people who could use the conversations. And even if you can't use them, I can use them. This is something I enjoy. I don't care if it makes money or not. Obviously, I would hope so, because then I can travel the world and go interview random people. But if it doesn't, it's okay, because it's something that I'm doing because it brings me peace, and it helps me do something that I enjoy doing. So, even if you have nothing to talk about, I do. I always have questions. Tell me your story. Tell me your opinions. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you've been. And I want to learn in the process. Nobody is the exact same person. I always have something to talk about, but I'm always scared to. Just like everybody else. So I'm going to use this podcast as a journey for myself. It's going to be the journey I take. I'm going to use it to help me get over social anxieties, which is things like, recording yourself. Who wants to be that guy? Like there's a lot of people I know that work out but don't want to record themselves working out because they feel like it's awkward, uncomfortable, whatever the situation is. There's a lot of people who say, oh, I want to vlog. I feel like I do a lot of cool things. I wish I could document it. But then don't do it because they don't want to be that guy carrying around a camera. Just go do it. I didn't want to be that guy who sat there and recorded himself and posted random motivational or inspirational or philosophical or whatever it is videos talking or quotes or any of that. I did not want to be that guy because I was scared to be judged. But I am that guy. That is the things that I enjoy. So me starting this is me starting a journey in a sense, I guess. I want to be so good at talking that I can go anywhere and have a great conversation. You could put me on any stage, and I will give a great presentation. I will give a great talk. You can put me in any room, and I will be a great conversation for hours on end. I don't even necessarily want to be a public speaker. It's not about that at all. But I want to be a voice and an ear. I want to be an ear. More than a voice, but also a voice for the public. And through that, I know and I hope that I will make a lot of memories and meet a lot of cool people and have a lot of fun experiences. Actually start doing the things that I would enjoy doing instead of the things that everybody else tells me to do. And that takes a lot from most people, but it can be done. You just have to want to do it. And you can either sit there and let the masses tell you what to do, or you can sit there and do what you want to do because you're the only person that cares. You are the only person that cares about how they feel about it. That's it. So, from this point forward, my journey will be very orientated on vulnerability and doing things that I hadn't done before. From my daily life to my social media life to my social life. And I'm going to do a lot of cool things and meet a lot of cool people. I'm super excited for 2025, and I'm super excited to meet a lot of cool people, do a lot of fun things, have a lot of cool conversations, and to learn a lot. That's the most exciting part for me. 2025 is going to be a good year. There's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of learning, a lot of so many things that I'm going to enjoy, and I'm so ready for it. And I hope it gets to the point where a lot of people grow because they watch my podcast. Take one thing home with you. That's it. That's all you need is just one thing. You need the one thing I said, or somebody else said, or the one thing that somebody did, if you're a watcher instead of a listener. There's always one thing that sticks with you. That's the one you got to focus on. Take home one thing. And it'll tell you something about yourself every single time.